Hello, everyone, and welcome along to the latest installment of questions and answers on racingtv.com. We heard earlier in the week from William Buick in the United Kingdom. He was in conversation with Nick Lightfoot, and the Irish interview this week comes with the man on the other side of the screen for me, Ger Lyons. Ger, of course, is a very well-known and very successful racehorse trainer, the man who won the Ebor last year, among other big races. Ger, it's good to see you. How have you been?
Good, Bernard. Yeah, strange times. We're busy as normal. I mean, our lives haven't much changed apart from I haven't left Glen Burnie in probably 2 months. We're busy working away, and we're just itching to get racing as soon as possible. It'd be great.
How are all the team at Glen Burnie? Is the morale good and high? Is it very much well, it's always a big team effort up there, I would imagine. But is it quite hard to keep motivated when you're not quite sure when the likes of a Guineas or the big races is going to be?
No, we've been very motivated. The team has been brilliant. I mean, we had a discussion at the start of it, and believe it or not, they're delighted to be for a change coming into work because it's something to do. You know, normal people are on lockdown, and our guys are coming into work, so they're busy all day. So it's, as I said, it's business as usual per se, except for the racing. Yeah, it'd be nice, but everything's out of our control at the minute. It'd be nice to know when racing is going to go ahead, or if there's going to be international racing, or, you know, am I going to be allowed to go to England? Am I going to be allowed to go to France? Are they going to be allowed to come here? There's a lot of them questions. You'd love, you know, to be out in the open so that we'd sort of like to make a plan, but that's nobody's fault. I mean, I know our authorities are trying their best to get us back racing as soon as possible, and but that's a day-to-day thing, as you know, with the government, and I think it's just important that we all stay healthy and are ready for the off when we get it.
And I suppose it's quite a tricky thing as well, Ger, because obviously the BHA in Britain and Horse Racing Ireland here in Ireland, they'll be trying to lobby government, but they've got to do it in a very kind of quiet way, and in a way that chimes with what's going on globally.
Yeah, listen, I mean, there's a lot of negativity regarding us going racing in quarters, on media quarters, and I think that's wrong, and it's a little bit sad, to be fair, because it just lacks understanding of what we're about and what we're doing. We're a very big industry here in Ireland, as you know, and as you know, and people should be made aware of that. You know, Ireland, it's a small country, and racing's a huge part of it. That's not to say that we don't race just ahead of everything else. That's not what it's about. It's about health and safety. It's about everybody doing the right thing, which I think we are. We're being well led, and ultimately we'll get racing when we get racing. But as I said, it would be just nice if a little bit of the fog was lifted regarding international racing, you know, and maybe the Group 1s or the Classics. Because, you know, one party, you know, is that we'll be racing, but it will be on lockdown, as France announced the other day. But is that going to be for the Group 1s, or is that going to be for the Classics? So I'd love to get them questions answered as soon as it's possible to answer them.
But in the meantime, what are you doing with your horses at Glen Burnie? Are you still working them as normal, or are you sort of trying to keep them ticking over, Ger? I mean, how
we were ready. As you know, we had a good start on the Monday at Naas. We were ready, and then what we had to do was sort of keep them simmering, take them off the boil and keep them simmering. And now I've started to bring them back to the boil again, with a view that our lockdown stops on May the 5th, and I would like to think we'll be racing any time from the 5-day entry system after that. So, you know, May the 5th is only around the corner. So I'm starting to rev them up again. We've never stopped. And basically, I was training them with the way that as soon as the officials let us go, I was ready to run. Now, of course, all horses will need, you know, we'll probably need the races, but I had a very good pre-season, and the horses were fit, and the longer you wait, the better they'll be, you know. So, but they're ready to go now, and it's nearly like you're on suicide watch at the minute watching them. You know, you just want to get them out and get a run into them, because there's only so long you can keep them simmering or boiling or bringing to the boil or whatever. So it's a new experience. But in our game, patience has always been a virtue, and if you're patient with a racehorse, you will get rewarded. So, but we're ready to rock, and I would like to think most lads are ready to rock and roll after the 5th. That's assuming that we get the green light.
Ger, we've plenty of viewer questions have been sent in via social media and email over the last number of days. And the first one I think is quite apt. It came from Andy Stevens. It looks like racing, when it returns, will be behind closed doors. Racing behind closed doors, in other words, without a crowd, will that suit certain types of horses, maybe a nervy horse, for instance?
Probably will. I mean, it probably will, but ultimately a racehorse, to be any good, has to handle the occasion. And if it doesn't handle the occasion, it's not going to be top class. So, yeah, it probably will. It'll be like, initially, I suppose it'll be like bringing horses for racecourse gallops. And it'll be all part of the experience. But ultimately, the horse has to handle the occasion. Like the Royal Ascots and Champions Weekends and the pre-relax races like that. You have to handle crowds. Some do, some don't. But that's part of the makeup of the racehorse. He might have all the other boxes ticked, and if he doesn't tick that, it'll cost him.
Another question we had from Danny Evans, a couple of them in fact. What's the best thing about being a racehorse trainer?
Well, there's a lot of good things about being a racehorse trainer, especially in weather like this. You're getting up in your own property and feeding the horses in the morning time. I love the morning time where I feed at 5:30 and you're on your own and you get to know all your horses. Sourcing horses, bringing them from A to B to C to the winner's enclosure, you get huge pleasure in that. There's plenty of ups with being a racehorse trainer. You're your own boss. You work your own hours. You work out in the open. There's a lot of positives, especially in weather like this.
Would you nearly prefer being at home, Ger, and training the horses instead of going racing, or do you have a preference?
I like being at home. I like being at home. I've always listen. As I said, I'm talking about Irish racing now, and that we don't have the miles to cover that guys do over in Britain and that. But I mean, there's times I go racing and I like going racing but when you've got Shane and Andrew going racing and the staff, and invariably if there's no owner there for you, there's no need for you to be there, and you get a lot more done at home. Evening racing is no problem because you've your work done before you leave and there's no reason not to go. But I mean, I don't understand. It's like the flying aspect, will I get in will I go in an airplane and fly over to watch a horse run in Newmarket? Of course you will, but the amount of hours you waste doing that to watch a horse run, which takes however many minutes, and then you have to spend the same amount of hours coming back. There's a lot of time wasted doing that, and ultimately your work is at home. And if you have your work done, you pack them on the wagon and off they go to the races. That's it's up to Colin then to put the ball in the back of the net at that stage. So I'm not really needed. So I mean, I'll go when needed, but ultimately I like staying at home.
Question here from Thomas Keane. He must be some relation because his question is: you made an extremely shrewd decision to make Colin your stable jockey at a young age. What did you see in Colin back then, which ultimately made you make that decision to appoint him as stable jockey?
It was just a good feeling. It was just a feeling. And I mean, a lot of things I've done in my career have been good feelings. And it was just a good feeling. It was simple as that. I mean, when you get to know the guy and you see him every day, it's apparent now. But that was apparent to me at the start. And it sat well with me at the time. It wasn't, believe it or not, the biggest decision of my life. It didn't take much thinking about. I had Gary Carroll here riding with us. He's always been with us. But Gary can do a certain weight and Colin can do a bit lighter. And the two of them work in tandem very, very, very well together. And it suits me. But it didn't feel like a big decision for me. It felt like this is the right decision. And never dawned on me that he was a 3-pound claimer. That never entered my head. I just knew that me and him are going to be able to work well together in the coming years, and so it has proven.
Would you have to regard it as one of your proudest moments as a trainer when Colin became champion jockey back in 2017?
Oh, without question. That was a fantastic year. I mean, it was a strange year. We just lost John Short. Lynn had cancer. And Colin then went off and bloody went for the title. And then to get it, it was absolutely, without question, one of, if not the proudest moment of our career. It was fantastic, and hopefully he'll do it again.
Particularly when you're competing in Irish racing, which is probably the most competitive backyard in any racing jurisdiction around the globe.
Yeah, I mean, racing is competitive wherever we go. I mean, it's improved with time. You know, everybody has their all-weather gallops. People can win first time out, get the horses ready. You know, it's gone very professional, Bernard. And if you don't get professional with it, they'll leave you behind. But I love the fact that we can compete at the top level over here, because, you know, we're invariably, as an industry, we're good at it. On the world stage, and it's nice to be able to compete, and long may it continue, because you know, you're only as good as your last winner, and you know, you can be gone, you can lose it as quick as you gained it. So hopefully we worked hard to get to where we are, and hopefully we'll have a few years at this level that we can keep getting the odd nice horse and win some Group 1.
Jim Dudley has a couple of questions as well, Ger. First of all, do you find that your prior experience as a jockey has helped you to be a trainer? And the second question is, what is the best way to instruct a jockey before a race?
The first part of that question, do I find all experience is good? No question. I mean, we've come up the hard way. I've come up the hard way from the ground routes right through to where we are. So did it help me ultimately it has to have helped me as a trainer, because you've seen things on the way, and whether you thought about it or not, you've retained them, and you've learned from them, the experience. I would say ultimately I always wanted to be a trainer, because I remember in school I'd always be drawing stables and gallops, and you know, you'd look at the field when you're driving by in a car and you'd think, which gallop would you put in there? You know, I was always thinking like that. But yeah, that experience, you know, all experience would have helped ultimately. The second part of the question was,
what is the best way to instruct your jockey before a race?
Well, Colin and I rarely, if ever. I mean, I don't give instructions to Gary either. We talk after the race. If you're riding, like, say, for example, Chris Hayes for me at Naas on the first day of the season, who rides for me but not regularly, I'd basically ring him up and I'd say, Chris, this horse is well, worried about the trip, she'll love the ground, ride her wherever you're happy. And in other words, it's over to him. And these guys are good at what they do. And I mean, I always find if you give them instructions, and I always warn lads, don't talk to jockeys on the way out, because they'll always remember the last thing you say to them. So the guys that ride for me, I let them loose and let them do what they do. It's very much keep it simple and ride the horse as you find it.
Emily Reynolds, Ger, was her question was, you have a number of big patrons now among your owners. Do they bring extra pressure or extra expectation?
Do they bring extra pressure? You broke up for me there. Not really. It's a pleasure to train for the clients we have. It's something that we worked hard to gain, and I believe that we've earned our stripes. I believe that they're here. They're not here, you know, because they like you or anything like that. They're here because they rate you. So ultimately, it's a vote of confidence, and my job then is to deliver. I mean, and that's just 30 years or 20 odd years of doing the job, getting to this level. Does it bring any more pressure? Not really, because I was always, from when we only had the couple of horses right all the way through, I put the pressure on myself to keep improving, keep winning. And I mean, when the horse is here, I treat it like I own it myself anyway, so the pressure comes from within. But the bigger the owner, like, I mean, we have a lot of people who are here from the very start, but the big outfits that are here, they know the time of day, and they send you the horse and you deliver, end the story, and it's very professional.
You've trained for a long time for Sean Jones, and he was a joint owner of Ger, who won the Ebor and won you a huge pot of money. And you've trained plenty of good horses over the years for Sean, Capella San Severo as well, and Psychedelic Funk. Does it give you, I know any big winner, irregardless of the owner, is going to be satisfying, but do you get a special kick when you train a good winner for somebody like Sean Jones, who's been with you for such a long time?
Yeah, Sean, David Spratt, Vincent Gall, they've been here from the very start, and like, we source the horses together. That we've come through the ranks together. So absolutely, I get a buzz out of that, because I know the buzz Sean gets out of winners. I mean, whether it's a claimer or a big winner, he just gets a huge buzz, and I just love delivering for him. And in recent years, David has joined the team, and as Ger ran in his colours, the horses are divided up between colours, and Ger ran in David's colours for the Ebor. But yeah, that's huge, because that's ultimately a very, very much a team game.
And in more recent years, you've had George Strawbridge coming on board with Who's Steph, and also, and we will be touching on Siskin a little bit later, as you probably expect, Judmont Farms, Khaled Abdullah. I'm just curious, Ger, how long have you been training for Khaled Abdullah, and how did that link up begin?
How long have I been training for Khaled Abdullah? I think this is my third season. How did that link up again? They rang me one winter and invited me to be on the team, and it was a dream come true, simple as. And to be training for the Prince is fantastic, and it's a career highlight, yeah.
And it hasn't taken too long for a very good horse to pop up in your yard in those silks as well. How is Siskin, Ger?
Siskin's great. He's had a good pre-season. He's training well. We brought him away to Naas just after the opening meeting for a refresher, and he seems in good order. And I'm just waiting, as I said earlier on, I'm just waiting for the powers that be to give us, the know-how so I can put the final parts of the plan in motion, because his plan was always to go for ultimately the English Guineas and have a look at him to see about the trip. I'd like that to be still the case, but until told otherwise, we're training him with the Guineas in mind. And I can't make any decisions until the powers that be tell us otherwise.
How do you reflect on his 2-year-old season last year, Ger? His 4 runs, all unbeaten, of course. I mean, when you look back, do you look back on a job very well done?
Yeah, it was lovely, because we made a plan, and the plan was never interfered with. I mean, all the time the question was asked, what's your plan, Ger? And I mentioned the plan from the very start. The ultimate was the Phoenix, and then once we run in the Phoenix, we'll have a wee look whether we step up in the Dewhurst or the Middle Park. That was, and it's very rare that the plan goes as it did, and credit to the horse for being there every time I asked him. And as I said, the team working for that outfit, for Teddy, they were great to work with, and they just, as long as I had my plan in mind, they stood by me, and they let me go ahead with the plan. Ultimately, it was the only negative on the season was the way he behaved in the stalls in the Middle Park, which was totally uncharacteristic. There's nothing you can do about something like that. That's racing. I mean, it's unfortunate, and we just had to dust ourselves down and come home and start again. It was the end of the season, so he's after having a very, very long break, and he's done well physically, and really looking forward to seeing him start off again.
Jamie Sylvester was wondering, Ger, first of all, how many 2-year-olds will you have for this season? And secondly, how long does it take you to realise whether you've got a Siskin or a Lightning Pearl among your team of 2-year-olds?
We've 62-year-olds, probably half the string. That's normal. With 60, you'd always be working between 120 and 150 horses. So at the minute, we've 60-ish on our team. Some are early, some are late, obviously. How long is it before when you bring them along, and it's when you do your first initial pieces of work, stand on the gallops with seen there. And I said, I don't know what I've seen, but I've seen it. I know I've seen something, you know. And the good ones will show you something. If they're precocious, you'll see it early. And obviously, you'll have horses who are going to be slow maturers, you know, horses like by Camelot that you're not going to be starting before September. So you bring them along a lot steadier. And then, but ultimately, the same would go that when you start quickening them up, it's not too long if they have ability before you start saying, oh, this is okay, you know.
We've had a few other questions as well, Ger, about yearling sales and how do you approach the yearling sales? How do you approach the whole area of sourcing young horses to come into the yard? I mean, what are your sort of do's and don'ts when you go to the sales looking to restock on yearlings for the following year?
The sales have become very difficult year on year. I mean, we started at the very basement of the sales, you know, buying the cheapies and working our way up, buying the cheapies and working our way up. And as we've progressed, the prices have got dearer and dearer and dearer. And I would have said in the interim, but maybe the quality hasn't improved as the prices have got dearer. They've become very, very hard to buy. What do I look for? Again, a lot of it is experience and instinct. But ultimately, when I look at a horse, the first thing I look at is the head. And if it's got a bad head in him, you know, I'd want to be talked into him. But because I'm going to look at this horse for the rest of his career or early parts of his career. I like a good physical. I like a horse that has a good step. And I would think, you know, we weigh our horses a lot. So I'd like to see, you know, that horse has a little bit of heft about him, a little bit of weight about him. And that's something I'd like to see come into the sales in the future, is the weighing of horses. Because whilst I don't think it's that important for racing, I think it would be a help to know what your yearling weighed. And I think it's not beyond the sales to be able to weigh the horses as they arrive and registered, you know, with the horses. So it'd be online, the weights of the said yearling, and it would help me as an end user. How do I explain that? If we have two horses of very similar ilk, similar pedigree, they look the same, everything about them. One is 450 plus kilos and one is 450 minus. I'd always go for the heavier horse, because ultimately we're training to move on to the likes of Hong Kong and that, and weight matters to these people, you know. But that's just something. I mean, there's so many professionals out there trying to buy horses. It's nigh on impossible. You know, the one I like, there's 20, 30 lads walking on the same horse, you know. So it's not that you've got a better eye than anybody else. 9 times out of 10, we all have the same eye. It's just whoever has the deepest pocket, you know. So it's I find it a very frustrating time of the year and a very stressful time of the year.
It must be, because there's so much racing going on as well at the same time in the autumn.
Yeah, well, it's not just the racing. That doesn't affect us because we're set up, as I said earlier, I'm set up to race without me. You know, the sales are important because your next 3 seasons matter with what you buy. Like if you buy well, you're going to have a nice 2-year-old, 3-year-old. If you buy poorly, obviously that you're going to have the reverse of that. So it's very, very important that you have your head on your shoulders when you go to the sales, and you have to be very, very disciplined, have good people around you, and just try and buy well and wisely, because your next 2 seasons depend on it.
You've trained plenty of good horses over the years, Ger, that didn't finish their career with you. In other words, they were sold, and no doubt that was good business. Has that ever caused you any regret, Ger, or have you always been, you know, happy to, you know, sell a horse onto an end user if it made good commercial sense?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if I didn't sell them. It's as simple as that. This is the economics of this sport. I mean, even the biggest owners sell their horses. You know, it's you have to, every year, as they say, everything has a price, and I mean, it's more difficult, but I mean, how a yard like mine got to this level is by buying and selling. It's as simple as that. And for me to buy next year's yearlings, I still have to have a good sale through the summer. And if I don't, or through the season, and if I don't have that sale, we can't go back and reinvest. It's as simple as that. It's chicken and eggs, and it's, you know, one hand feeds the other.
Um, Michelle Green, on a lighter note, Michelle Green writes, Ger, I believe you celebrated winning the Ebor last year by mowing your lawn. Do you go for squares or stripes when you're on the lawnmower? And is grass cutting dependent on big winners?
No, grass cutting. When I finish this interview, I'll go out and I'll be cutting grass. I'm always cutting grass. I love it. I just cutting grass and there's plenty of it to cut. It's our lawns are great. Our lawns, and I love maintaining them. And I spent the last week out in the sun gardening. It's something we enjoy doing. And don't get me wrong, it's not physical. I'm sitting on a lawnmower and I'm just enjoying it, listening to a podcast or something, and I just enjoy it. I don't know what it is, Bernard. I absolutely love getting on my lawnmower and cutting lawn.
Very good. This is worse. Have you, since the whole lockdown and this COVID-19 emergency, have you come up with any more hobbies, or are you doing baking or anything like that, or have you enough to be going along with?
No, I learned how to fly this winter, and obviously that's took a belt. We can't go out for testing it out, and I love it, and I want to do more of that. And I'd love ultimately to we've big plans, me and him, to with a little plane. So I just enjoy that. I mean, that's typical me. I'd get into something and it's all over no dinner. So I just decided, because Lynn has always been saying to me, you need a hobby, you need a hobby, you need a hobby. And I haven't the patience to play golf or something like that. So I went off last winter, and Tony flies me when I do go to England. He flies us here, there and everywhere. So I just said, here, you wouldn't teach me how to fly. And we're just taking it step by step. So it's now my current hobby.
Is it difficult to learn to fly, Ger? I mean, I would imagine there's quite a bit of discipline needed, if nothing else.
If I can do it, Bernard, it's not. No, it's not. It's surprisingly straightforward. It's surprisingly straightforward, and it's just, listen, it's not that I'd go up there on my own now and cut loose at the minute, but ultimately I can't wait to do that. But no, it's surprisingly straightforward. If you're a good teacher.
So, are you looking to become the Irish version of Mark Johnston?
No, I certainly am not. But I mean, like, I have no interest. Like somebody asked before, like as I explained to you earlier on, getting up at 6 o'clock to go to the airport, to take hours to go over for one race is pointless to me, when I can do a morning's work, drive up the road to the airport, to the airfield, get on a small plane, fly over, do your job and come back. You waste less time and you get more work done. So that's where I'm coming from with that. And it's as simple as, it's all about just managing your time better. I mean, I can't think of anything worse than sitting around airports for 5 minutes work and then the same on the way back. To me, it's mind-boggling. It's pointless, you know, and you can do a lot more with your time at home, and that's where that comes in. And I have a huge interest in the small, you know, and it's only a Cessna 180, you know, I enjoy it, and it's nice, something I'd like to develop.
I've got another question here for you. It's a bit of a hypothetical one. Is there any horse, past or present, that you would like to have trained? And if so, would you have done anything different with that horse? So is there any horse out there, either from the past or a horse that's currently in somebody else's yard, that you would like to get your hands on?
Oh, there's plenty I'd love out there to have got my hands on. Who wouldn't have loved to train Frankel or See the Stars? Wouldn't that have been fantastic? Why would you do anything different than what them two maestros did with their horse? The only thing different I would do is let my man ride him. So, but no, that wouldn't have been fantastic to train something like Frankel or See the Stars.
Absolutely, or Galileo even, or any of them.
Or Galileo, absolutely. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, just to get your hands on horses like that must be, you know, life-changing.
Dream dinner guests. This is a question that pops up regularly on the Racing Post. Who would your 4 dream dinner guests be?
I'm a real sports buff. I absolutely love sport. I mean, my podcast, I'd listen to them all day long regarding sport. I guess um, be sports orientated. Like I'd love to sit down with Mick McCarthy and Roy Keane. I like Roy Keane as a pundit. I met Mick McCarthy when he was managing that team, and he's a lovely guy. But I'd love to just get in there and listen about Saipan and this, you'd have Hugh McIlvanney as the doyen of sports journalists who'd keep John Frankham has always been, I've always admired John Frankham and maybe his twang or whatever, and he'd always keep things right. But I'd add him to a party like that. But Brian Clough, I'd love to be back in an era talking football with him. So I love sport, and I love listening about sport, listening to the podcast. So that dinner table would change 100 times over week on week. I mean, listen to anybody, except maybe about cricket or boxing. But most sport, I would sit and I'd get great enjoyment listening to experts talking about it.
Do you find from following all those sportsmen that you mentioned that what they did in their careers has in any way influenced you in your career or influenced your approach to training racehorses or running Glen Burnie stables?
Oh, it's a good question. You'd hear common denominators that you say, oh yeah, but that would be the same in football that there is in our game, and a lot of it's just doing the same thing, being consistent, being dedicated, and just doing the right thing simply. I mean, and you'd hear them, like, ultimately sport is sport. To listen to some people talk, you think they were actually in an airplane or flying a rocket to the moon. But ultimately, yeah, there's a lot of things. If you sit down and you listen to these people talk about their industry, it's similar to what we do. The only difference being we deal with animals who can't speak to us. So there has to be, and that only comes with, as I said to you earlier, getting up in the morning, feeding your horses and getting to know your horses, and then having the confidence that what is right, and then put it into motion. And a lot of that, Bernard, only comes with experience. I mean, the things I did at the start, I mean, would frighten me looking back. But we kept doing it and we kept learning from it, and it cost us money to learn from mistakes. But ultimately, I mean, sitting here now with what we have and the string we have, you wouldn't sweat it. You'd be happy. If you told me 25 years ago that this was going to happen, I'd be very happy, and and the hard work is paying off. So, no, it's good. We're in a very privileged position.
I have one more question for you. It's another hypothetical one, I'm afraid. If you were stranded on a desert island, what 4 possessions would you need to have with you?
Well, first of all, we'll assume that this desert island has broadband, and all of that, all of the amenities. So I would do solitary very, very well. It has been said. I haven't left Glen Burnie since even before this lockdown, so I would do solitary very, very well. What would I need? I'd need my little dog with me, or any of the dogs that we've had in the past. I love having the dogs around me. I would have Spotify, because I love listening to music with the son. I'd have an array of books. I love reading John Grisham and Fred Archer, Jeffrey Archer, all of these. I just love reading books. And then an endless supply of chocolate would be a necessity.
I was waiting for you to put in that you'd also bring your lawnmower with you. Now, there mightn't be too much grass in this desert island.
No, I wouldn't be worried about that. We'd sort that out. But no, the 4 things that I said to you, that I'd survive with them. I'd survive with them as long as I had the chocolate and the dog, and it'd be grand.
Well, Ger, thank you very much indeed for agreeing to do this interview and so kindly giving us your time as well. I think you are currently the leading flat trainer in Ireland at the moment, based on that meeting at Naas.
Seemingly, yeah. So let's just hope that's not the case, that we get back racing sooner rather than later, and if and when we ever end up being leading trainers for the right reasons.
Ger, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernard. Stay well. Wish everybody well. Oh, can I just say, Bernard, just a pal of mine, Philip Burns, his daughter isn't well with the virus up in Aberdeen, and I just want to wish Philip and Lily all the best, and I hope that she comes through.
Very good. And so say all of us, Ger. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bernard. Cheers.